policy is called restorative justice. The idea that that people that have been in oppressed groups or marginalized groups have to be treated differently under the law, which is completely and totally antithetical to what we're talking about.
That's
here,
antithetical to the Constitution.
Yeah,
and that's antithetical to what our country was built on. When it comes to the Declaration of Independence, the grievances 8, 9, 18, and 19 all deal with captured courts, and the grievances 12 and 15 deal with 2 tiers of justice. So.
I feel like the large shift that we've seen politically, like how Donald Trump ends up winning the popular vote, comes from a lot of moderates. You see Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., even someone like me. We are all liberal. I never consider myself like a Democrat, but if I went and voted, it was just like straight Democrat, the 1 or 2 times I ever did. And then what ends up happening is I watch the news, and what do I see? I see far left rioters throwing firebombs, smashing things repeatedly over and over again. I personally end up going down and covering some of these riots and these protests. And I see instances where they get arrested. I was at the Trump's inauguration in 2017, and there were hundreds of far left extremists who set fires, smashed windows. A limousine was torched. It was owned by an immigrant. It was a contractor who was doing rides. Numerous fires, and then they mass arrested several hundred people. I end up getting caught up in the what they call a police kettle. And I, as well as a few other journalists, presented our press cards, waited patiently, and eventually got released. These individuals who got arrested, who were clearly engaged in violence, ended up not only having their charges dropped, but they sued the federal government and won over $1 million. So here's someone like me, where it's like, you know, I grew up Chicago, liberal, punk rock, all that stuff. And then I'm like, oh, that's how it goes. Then I see a bunch of right-wingers go out and protest, and it's nationwide manhunt. And to the point where, while I certainly agree anybody who's violent should go to jail. Like you hit a cop, you go to jail for that, you know?
Yep.
I met one couple that showed up to the Capitol several hours after everyone had already left, and there were just people standing in the lawn. They walked up an open sidewalk, up to a building where the doors were wide open, no broken glass on the other side of the building. And they walked in and looked around and didn't know what was going on, didn't see anything, and then just left. And then I think it was a year later, they got their home raided, and this man and this woman were sentenced to 18 months in prison, and they had no idea why. So when I see something like that, I think that is why you end up with people saying, Trump, pardon everybody. We don't trust the system anymore. We've seen too much violence go. I mean, you had those 2 individuals in New York who were giving out Molotov cocktails. Got a slap on the wrist.
You talking about the lady that firebombed the car? Was that in Philadelphia?
The 2 lawyers.
About.
2 lawyers were giving out Molotov cocktails in New York City.
Yeah.
And they end up getting a slap on the wrist. No federal charges. Kash Patel talked about it.
Right.
So that breaks my confidence in the justice system being fair and reasonable. And then when someone comes to me and says that Donald Trump is guilty of a crime, I say, yeah, I'm reading those documents. Someone comes to me and says Enrique Tarrio committed seditious conspiracy. I say, yeah, right. I just don't believe it. I can't believe it. And I think that's the reasonable take. Not that it's wrong, but to start from a place of skepticism and then say, show me the actual evidence, because the word of a jury in a 90% Democrat district is not enough for me to believe someone actually did something wrong, at least right now.
Well, and that's the real tragedy of all of this, is that the weaponization of the prosecutions is the one thing. And of course, not a majority of the prosecutors across the country have been supported by George Soros. That wasn't what I was insisting.
I think you were saying more liberal.
I was saying, yes,
Yeah.
They tend to be more liberal. These, rogue prosecutors tend to represent the cutting edge, and they're seen as the cutting edge among the prosecutor community. And then you see many of these examples over and over again where there is not equal justice applied.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.